There are no shortcuts to building wealth today. It takes time, effort, sacrifice, and diversification. But today, diversification means something different than it did in the past. You deserve a more secure way to protect and grow your wealth. At Delta Harbour, we take this to heart. Our mission is to help by inviting you to add physical gold and silver to your wealth strategy. Book a free consultation today and let us show you how to protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. Let us show you the Delta difference. Hey everybody, welcome once again to Hard Money. John Scholes here along with Darren Long. Good to have you on board. Reaching out anytime at all, 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. That is Harbor with a U. This investment always about you. And you can catch these shows and many others, the video cast version, if you're watching this on YouTube. Well, you're already there. If not, youtube.com/Delta Harbor. Darren, have a sip of water, buddy. Let's get going. What are we talking about today?
Well, this is a show on silver, gold, and other hard assets. This is real money, real wealth, and the reasons why we love it so much, why we want to diversify, why we think the listeners that are listening to the show right now, John, should be thinking a lot these days in this time and era about ways that they can reshape their wealth strategy, and they need to think about including things like physical gold and silver. Gone are the days, John, when these are cumbersome assets, hard to transport, hard to buy and sell. There is nothing that can stop us from making this an easy solution for people to increase the insurance they have for their wealth, to increase the potential outcomes they have for their families in terms of return on their investments, and to get them educated about the real world we live in right now, John. So we want to do that, and we're going to talk throughout this show about gold and silver. Let's keep it simple. The only thing that Delta Harbour deals in is physical gold and silver. Yeah. We do not play in the paper world. We are not talking about futures, options on futures, or mining stocks. These are not certificates, and we are not here doing this show today to give advice on people's wealth. We're here as experts in gold, silver. The three partners that make up Delta Harbour Assets, along with our team, are always at the beck and call of clients who want to add physical gold and silver. And we're going to spend today talking all about that, John. So if this is a show for you as a listener, take some time to give us a call, go to the website, but we're going to give it to you very often on today's show.
I want to start to at least get into more of this segment, Darren, with what I know, and I have for years, is your favorite metal of both. I know you like both, but you really love silver. Give me some details why this is such a good thing to have as part of your portfolio.
Well, it's kind of a why silver and gold, kind of a silver and gold 101 for our listeners. Again, the beginning of the school year. So we thought, this is a great time to do it. And as we progress through this last quarter and as a generic show altogether, these are concepts and ideas that really fit well for people hearing the show and wanting to replay it anytime. And the thing I want to make sure that people understand, John, is we're not dealing with assets like silver and gold that haven't already shown us something, that haven't already done something for us. In fact, less than 2% of the globally managed asset base have exposure to gold and silver yet. Since I started in this industry way back in 2004, both gold and silver have risen well over 300%. In fact, this is a asset class which has performed so well, John, that both metals have averaged year over year about 20. And that is something in this day and age when you can turn around and say that. It is averaged higher than real estate during that time. Sensitive topic. Yes, I know. It's averaged more in the stock market. Maybe not such a sensitive topic, depending on who you are and how big your stock portfolio is. Right. But we have been working with investors, John, from every walk of life, including blue collar, white collar, dads, moms, RSPs, TFSA holders, small businesses, large corporations, to own physical gold and silver since 2004, when I started in this industry. Back then, believe it or not, gold price was around $300 an ounce. Silver was around $4.50. And we have witnessed during that time the peak of a market, major recession, 2008, 2009. We've had a rebound. We've had sovereign debt crisis around the world, things like Cyprus and Greece and other sovereign debt problems within the Eurozones and other areas. We've had major inflation in different parts of the world, from Iraq and parts of Africa, and money printing, John, the likes of which we have never witnessed. And the struggle that the world economies are enduring due to COVID over the last year or two. And throughout all of this, gold and silver and many hard assets for that matter, including things like land and real estate and collectibles and other types of commodities, have outperformed pretty much all of the markets collectively on an annualized average basis. And if you're listening to this show right now, think about it from this perspective. About 90% of those that invest in anything are investing in stocks, bonds, or what we call interest-bearing instruments, such as GICs and so forth, other types of paper investments that you get most of the time tricked into buying and owning because you don't want any risk. Banks love it. But I tell you right now, I hate them. I think they're useless tools for the most part, and people should be thinking heavily about what the best path for them is. However, as I said, less than 2% of investing public own real physical gold and silver. We reach thousands of readers and potential owners of gold and silver monthly, John. Yet this is minuscule compared to the roughly 70 to 80 million potential investors in the US and Canada alone. My point is simple. If you're looking for undiscovered asset class, silver and gold fit the bill, because silver and gold are assets that have been known since the dawn of civilization. Most people naturally hold strong preconceived opinions or notions about both gold and silver. Everyone's probably aware of or has some opinion of the dramatic price jump and decline during the 70s of gold and silver, and some idea about gold confiscation back in the 30s with the Great Depression, or maybe you've heard about the Hunt brothers with silver. There are all kinds of things, but very few have taken the time to study silver and gold closely. It's easier and less time consuming to rely on what we call, anyways, superficial opinions and headline news in this day and age, most of which, John, as we've talked over the years, for a decade plus, in fact, most of which those headlines are absolutely false. And unfortunately, that's not usually the path to success. Not all hard assets are made equal, and not all of them are expected to move dramatically higher. But in silver and gold particularly, you have the making of what is shaping up to be world-class, multi-decade run on both metals. So this is a very exciting moment. It's a single point for a moment. Perhaps the finest way for us to define the reality we are faced with is by saying, why are we doing shows on gold and silver? If it wasn't a thing, why would we be doing it at all? And the fact is that we are dealing with assets which are tangible, hold in your hand, can be passed through generations, can be put into your registered accounts now very easily in a TFSA, RSP, can be stored through great firms like Delta Harbour. And it all starts with that simple information that you give out so honestly through the show every week, John, and that is our phone number and our website.
And those are 1-888-335-8645. Just simply call it. I mean, really, there's no pressure. You want to get a hold of Darren, or remember the team there. The guys will talk to you, just to educate you more, because a lot of people really have no idea, but beyond being able to spell gold and silver, right? They just don't know how it can bolster their portfolio. That and deltaharbor.com, Harbor with you. You can begin right on the website as well. You're investing, or again, reach out and get more information. So tell us a little more about it. Pal, we got about a minute before the break, but just start in the fundamentals, I guess, of gold and silver. Then we'll come back and discuss more of that.
Well, I think there are a number of fundamentals we need to discuss, John. Four, in fact, that I coined way back in 2004, and I certainly want to spend a little bit of time today talking about those things, whether it's the dollar devaluation that's going on around the world. Our fiat currencies are worth less and less every year, purchasing power, whether it's inflation, whether it's geopolitics that shape what whole countries do to protect their wealth, or supply and demand. Those are the four fundamentals we always discuss, and we apply to silver and gold here at Delta. And when I look at both metals, I simply keep it in layman's sense as easy as possible, John. Do their current prices accurately reflect their true fundamental value? And when we come back, we're going to tell you why we don't think so.
DeltaHarbor.com, where you want to go, YouTube.com/Delta Harbor anytime, of course, and the phone number. Use it. Have a conversation. 1-888-335-8645. This is Hard Money on Sauga 960. All right, welcome back to Hard Money. Darren Long there, of course. John Scholes here every week talking to you, educating you, and opening your eyes to this alternative part of your investment portfolio, which you have not explored. If you've just dabbled in it, maybe it's time to get a little more serious, at least get educated on the fundamentals of gold and silver. Do it by making a phone call, 1-888-335-8645. You like the online learning portion? Darren and Robin Roy, the fellas, have set you up in that regard as well. DeltaHarbor.com, the website. And if you're a lover of YouTube, past shows, including this one, are going to be up there for the video cast for you to watch and listen to. YouTube.com/Delta Harbor. But the four fundamentals, as whittled down by you, Darren, some time ago. Let's continue educating people on what those are and why this physical investment is worth having for sure.
Well, we were saying we look at both metals, gold and silver.
Yep.
In commodity terms, we look at them in terms of value. And so we always ask the same question based on what we see in the markets. Are these metals of gold and silver undervalued, overvalued? Well, I feel very strongly, John, that there have been very few instances since 2004, when I started in the industry, in which gold and silver have actually been overvalued. And I would argue that silver remains undervalued. It's lower than its actual 1980 high, the last time we had a major bull market. Gold, back then in January of 1980, hit a high of $850 an ounce. Silver hit $52 an ounce. Right now, for those that either know or don't know, gold is trading in the 1,700 to 1,800 range. Probably going to go a lot higher than that before even the end of this year. But John, ultimately, when we're talking about gold and silver, we're talking about the essence of all investments, in the sense that what are their fundamentals? Why would I buy them? And it kind of has to be broken down into two sections, gold and silver. And when I talk about silver, John, I talk about a metal which I believe wholeheartedly is the most undervalued asset on the face of this planet. I mean, it surprises me every day that people don't know this. But we've gotten so far away from the normal traditional fundamentals of investment, self-direction of our wealth, being responsible for the dollar that we spend. We've gotten so far away from that. We've been so brainwashed to think that other people can do a better job than we can do, just because they have a title or they're an expert in one field. It's nonsense. You may ultimately decide to work with somebody. You may already be working with somebody, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it guarantees you are going to have wealth preservation or wealth growth. We've gotten too far away from that, John. And when we think about gold and silver, these are simple things. It's a hunk of metal, right? A bar of gold, a bar of silver, coin, whatever form you're going to take it in. These are simple, easy to own assets which have stood the test of time. They've been here for thousands of years. And when we think in particular about silver, it's an interesting argument, because the best thing of all with silver is that during the whole time that I've been in this market, right up to the fact that we've even seen silver go as high as $49 an ounce in 2011, we've never, ever seen fair value. Never, in my opinion, have silver reached fair value. And why it's like that? Well, there are many reasons for it, some which I think are yet undiscovered, and many of which may pertain to things that make people mad when they think about the value of silver if you've already bought it and it hasn't gone to 100, 150 an ounce, right, like it should. But what's unique to silver is that during the whole time, in fact, even more than that, 60, 70 years, its demand has exceeded, in the net sense, its supply. So we've had way more demand for an asset and we've had less supply. So we've killed all of the supplies we have. Now, if you think of gold and other commodities, there's a lot of above ground supply. We have a lot of gold above ground. In fact, the majority of it is above ground. But it would be simply impossible to think that in most commodities, let's say gold, for example, that if demand outstrips supply, the price wouldn't rocket sky high. And of course, it has. Seen the same thing happen more recently with palladium. You've seen that with other commodities. You've seen it happen with real estate here in Canada, right? You've seen demand outstrip supply, and voila, prices go way higher. But in silver, that hasn't happened. It is currently less than half of its 1980 price. There's no real other major commodity with silver's profile, which is sitting at half its 1980 price. And the very reason it has occurred in silver is the reason I think silver is the best investment. Its deficit consumption pattern in any commodity is the most bullish circumstance possible. It just cannot get more bullish in any other commodity for consumption to exceed production. That condition can exist in long term, but it has in silver. But by the time it's obvious that a commodity's consumption is greater than its production, it's usually reflected in the price being quite high. Like I just said, gold, other metals, base metals, building metals, other commodities right now. We've talked about super cycles in the past, yet we have not seen silver perform up to the caliber of those other metals. Been a huge shortfall in supply. There is no more above ground supply of silver. Everything that we bring to market for clients pretty much is completely fabricated just ahead of the purchase. And when it gets to the client, it's brand spanking new. If you're buying in 2021, 2022, 2023, it's all made to order. So there is no more stockpile of silver. It's gone, yet the price hasn't reflected that. So you are in a major, incredible position to take advantage of that. And I think gold is undervalued as well.
And that number, by the way, give it out in between here, 1-888-335-8645 and deltaharbor.com, Harbor with you, is not part of the, well, I won't even say it's part of the issue. It's kind of a cool part of silver is the fact that it can be a byproduct of other mining. So it's like they haven't really, there's not a hyper focus on it, which is good for the investor if you're going to start, no, I won't say stockpiling, but getting some of the physical metal into your portfolio, right? Because eventually somebody's going to wake up and realize, guys, everybody's using this thing and we got to get our hands on it. How about that?
Well, we are going to talk about that because it's certainly an important point. Prior to starting in this industry in 2004, the U.S. government had the largest inventory of above ground ounces. They had about 5 billion ounces 60 years ago. And wow, by 2005 or so, it had gone to zero. And that's because they're going to keep up with their coinage programs, one of the largest coinage programs in the world, the Royal Canadian Mint being a close second there. But because of the silver shortage over the past 60 years and the dumping and destruction of many billions of ounces of inventory, tremendous imbalances and irregularities have been created, John. Most of these irregularities are unknown to world investors and are not reflected in the price today. And that's what creates the opportunity. Irregularities like thousands of years of cumulative silver production being consumed in the past 60 years, no new real mining and very little available in large quantities. There's no major recycling programs and no development of new major projects, in the works. At the time when, and we're going to discuss it today, usages are the widest they've ever been, the highest amount of industrial demand in existence in history as we speak today. So, as to your point, John, most silver, 70 to 80% of it brought to market is mined as a byproduct of other types of mining, whether it's copper, gold, zinc, lead, so on and so on. There are very few actual primary silver mines in the world, since most are really just mines for other things that are more valuable. Therefore, mild increases in the price of silver are not going to bring substantially more silver out of the ground.
We'll dig deeper on that one and talk about silver and gold later on. And of course, we're going to tell you how you can get a portfolio started with Delta Harbour as well. But first, a short break here. 1-888-335-8645, the number, and online to deltaharbor.com as well. This is Hard Money on Sauga 960. All right, welcome back to Hard Money. Good to have you along on the show today. Down to brass tacks, as they say, or silver gold tax, I guess is what we're talking about more, Darren. You want to reach out anytime as well, 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. That is Harbor with a U. This investment and a way to increase your portfolio is all about you. So I mentioned it, and you can do it online, but you can do it with a phone call and get better educated as well, Darren. But how do you go about opening that account with Delta Harbour? It is high time to do so, I would say.
Well, in fact, you're right, John. It is, and it's very easy to do with Delta. As we said earlier in the show, it's no longer cumbersome, not hard to transport, and it's liquid. It's easy to sell and buy, and it's accepted around the world. This is the huge misnomer about gold and silver. Well, if I buy it from you, how do I sell it? Who's going to buy it from me? Do I have to put it on eBay or auction it or something? That sounds really difficult. No, what most people don't realize, John, is that it's the most liquid asset in the world. It's one of the only asset categories that trades from Sunday evening to Friday evening, 24 hours a day in some capacity or another on a market worldwide. And so ultimately, when we think of gold and silver, recognize that your governments, your central banks, they treat this as a relic. They don't publicly acknowledge the value of gold. You know, the heads of banks certainly are guilty of doing this, yet they themselves, as central banks the world over, at least in the G20, are the largest holders of gold. They physically have huge stockpiles of gold. So when it comes to an account with Delta, these are some of the things that we want to teach people when they're coming aboard. It's easy to purchase. You can purchase it right through Delta directly. It's a phone call. Use our website as reference. Set up an account, fund your account, and get the ball rolling, and we'll deliver it right to you. It's as easy as that. We'll bring it right to your doorstep. Anywhere in the world, we will deliver gold and silver, obviously with the exception of non-stable jurisdictions, but outside of that, anywhere. You can put it into a registered account, John. TFSAs, RSPs here in Canada, what a beautiful thing. What a great thing to take advantage of. If you haven't put a TFSA together for yourself, you're missing out. It's a freebie. It's tax-free. Put up to $75,500 in it right now. And when we get into the next year, we're going to add more to that. So every single year that amount increases, and you can do it in physical gold and silver. It's stored and it's bought and sold by telephone, just like a stock. Very easy. You can go online, see what your position is. Very, very easy. In addition to that, we have the ability for people to finance their purchase, John. If somebody wants to take this to the next level and believes in the story of silver, for example, you can pick up 1,000 ounces of silver right now for around about, let's say, I guess roughly give or take around, let's say, $24,000, $25,000 US. And, you know, in terms of Canadian dollars, that's going to be a little over 1,000 or 30,000. And so that's easy to do. Or you could use our bulk bullion program, in which you could finance up to 80%, get that same 1,000 ounces for around 6,000 or 7,000, or for that same $30,000, you could sit on 3,000 or 4,000 ounces of silver, control that completely, self-direct it, make choices about buying and selling, add or subtract. And as that price of silver does rally higher, as it goes up to that $40, $50 level, $60, $70 level, start thinking about the kind of money you're going to make. And if that's the way you want to participate in this market, that's a third option for our listeners, John. It's very easy to do. All starts at the website. Find us on Spotify, YouTube. Just look up Hard Money and you'll find Delta Harbour there. We'd be delighted to speak to you about all of these options anytime.
Again, Darren mentioned that number 1-888-335-8645, and yeah, deltaharbor.com. Tell me a little more about storage, because I mean, it's, as you say, it's physical metal. This isn't a piece of paper you can look at. It says silver on it. This is actual physical metal that's heavy. You can hold it in your hand. And if you're, you're going to grab yourself, as you said, for an example, 1,000 ounces of silver. I mean, this is going to weigh a bit, and you might not want to stash it under your bed. It's always not safe, and for other reasons as well. So tell me a little bit about the storage option you guys offer.
Well, it never ceases to amaze me, John, how people think it's about metals and what their perceptions are. And sometimes you'll get the odd person who does know that silver is in particular a very dense metal, but because of its relative price, you're taking 1,000 ounces of silver, it's around 68 pounds. But more than often, I guess probably 90% of the time, when people come and hold on to a 100-ounce bar of silver and it's 6.8 pounds, almost 7 pounds, they're blown away. It's such an amazing thing to see. But with these assets, in terms of keeping them safe and insured, there is a need, really, when you think about it, to put it into storage. Storage is inexpensive. Our accounts, the registered accounts, start at 1.25% of the total metal value. And our storage accounts, which are just standard storage accounts, where a person just says, hey, I have X amount of metal I want to buy and I want to store it. It's not in an RSP or TFSA. That starts at 1%. So it's not cumbersome. It's not expensive to store your metal. And there are all kinds of options, but safe, it's insured, can be bought and sold by telephone when it's there. You can go visit it. You get the metal put in your name, so it's your account, not Delta's. It's segregated from the rest of Delta's holdings, so it sits there in the vaults with your name, with your account number, and you are in complete control. You can visit your product and audit it, which means you can make certain it's there if you're somebody who questions the legitimacy of storage. But if you're just the average person, John, odds are you're not going to want to see or touch the metal or put your hands on it. Storage is the way to go. It's simple, it's safe, and it keeps it insured. And there is no worry about safety at home when you have $20, $30, $100,000 worth of metal in the sock drawer. Now it becomes an issue. You told Uncle Pete, and Uncle Pete in passing tells cousin Dave, and Dave tells a bunch of his buddies, and before you know it, somebody's knocking on your door and trying to take that from you. So we don't want to risk that. This is why we say storage is a great option and an important one, John. So I'm glad you brought it up because it's all part of it. And talking about fundamentals in a show like this, where we're just discussing the overall aspects and benefits of gold and silver ownership, talking about storage is an important one. So I thank you for bringing that up.
Take a few minutes now. I want to get back into the demand for both these metal and where it's coming from. I mean, there's industrial and otherwise, but take a couple minutes before we break, Darren, and give me some details on it.
Well, when it comes to Delta Harbour, John, we talked about four fundamentals. We talked about depreciating currencies and the money printing that's been part of that, inflation that stems from all that money printing, geopolitics, why whole countries around the world might own gold as a strategic asset, banks, central banks around the world as they do, and then supply and demand. And this is an important one, John. Demand is in particular very, very high right now for in particular silver. Gold as well, but silver is the winner when it comes to demand. And from the demand side of the equation, silver is used as an industrial metal first and foremost. Gold, really, believe it or not, whether people want to argue about it till they're blue in the face or if they want to say no, yes, both sides of the coin, it's still treated as a money. Why else would central banks hold it if they didn't feel it was going to be insurance for all their foreign reserve currencies? They hold it in their banks as a way to balance their investments, balance their holdings, and to keep their foreign currencies very safe. And, that's what the difference is between gold and silver. Silver is an industrial metal. Its demand comes from industry, whereas gold is primarily a monetary metal. Now, both metals have industrial and monetary demand, and they're interchangeable to a certain extent. But for the most part, silver is primarily going to be industrial, whereas gold is going to be monetary. In silver, you have a metal, for example, in which there are more patents pending for industrial usages of silver than any other precious metal in existence today. It's used in almost everything that we touch in terms of electronics, TVs, everything. It's amazing. And the list goes on and on and on. And we should focus some time and effort on lengthening that out, because demand and usages are a huge part of why we believe silver is capable of triple digits in the next few years.
You know what? We'll do that after a break. It's a good place to launch from as we come back from a break. Getting into it, 1-888-335-8645. Again, youtube.com/Delta Harbour to watch more of these video casts, the archive of those. And deltaharbor.com, the website, Harbor with you, because this investment's all about you. We'll continue Hard Money on Sauga 960. Welcome back, Hard Money. Darren Long, of course, is here from Delta Harbour. John Scholes alongside. We are educating you on this week on the show, all about silver, metal, gold and silver, rather, physical metals. You get them into your account, start investing, use your other assets for other things. But gold and silver, you want hard assets. These are physical metals you can get into your account. You want to use registered accounts, that's fine. You want to take it home, you want to store it. You can do all kinds of different things. There is options as well. And you want to get, well, the getting is good. You mentioned it's a monetary piece, the gold for the most part, but silver, different animal. Also an investment, of course, over the long term to buy it and hold it and keep it and accumulate, Darren. But man, as you said before the break, medical instruments, electric cars. I mean, you're going to say goodbye to the gasoline motor probably within the next 10 or 15 years. And guess what's going to replace it? Electric. Guess what's in those cars? A ton of silver. So it's going to be a pretty busy metal looking forward. And if there's a shortage and you've got a good stockpile in your investment portfolio, you're going to be all smiles eventually. right?
Well, I think not only are you going to be all smiles, John, but as an investor, I think there's so many reasons to be excited about it. I think more recently, we've talked about this. I mean, you and I have known each other for a long time, and we've spent a great deal of time helping people to gauge what silver and gold can do for them, sharing this information with the public. Yet very few people know, John, it's in everything silver. Gold tends, because of its costs, to be used in more high-end industrial usages. It's a monetary metal, so it's stored in banks. It has all kinds of usages in terms of monetary terms. Silver does not right now, and we're not going to beat around the bush about that. Is it money? Sure. You can use it as money. Same as gold. It does have monetary value. It is undervalued, however, as we talked about earlier in the show, but it's primarily used as an industrial metal. And the most exciting thing that I get hyped about, John, is the demand that's coming from, as you said, energy, which is primarily green usages, solar energy, which is electric cars, and this whole discussion of all of that. And silver's got a big role to play, in fact, in the new energy era. And I've talked at length about all these things. I highly recommend, and again, maybe we'll throw it into our newsletter this week, which is free for anyone that's listening to the show. If you want some insight and you don't want to spend all kinds of time going down rabbit holes of other websites and things like that, you want to get right to the point. Why silver? Why gold? Why should I own this? Our newsletter is simple. It's put together so that anyone can comprehend it. There's no technical aspects to the newsletter. We don't spend all kinds of time focused on things that aren't important to us. We talk about gold and silver and reasons to own it. But silver in particular, John, this is an interesting era that we're entering into. And people, I think, really underestimate or don't know that silver's in everything we touch. We talked about electronics and we talked about all kinds of different usages for silver. There are tens of thousands of different usages for this metal, but this new energy era is extremely exciting. And this is what we call, and what the visual capitalists call, and if you don't know Visual Capitalist, it's a great website. I highly recommend you go there. The silver intensive future. And I'll quote from their three-part series on silver, in which they talk about silver's role in new energy era. And I'll quote, a green future will be mineral intensive, and metals will find new uses in green technologies. Silver's no exception. Long known as a precious metal, silver is also an industrial metal needed to create an eco-friendly future. And they show that there is a forecast for the amount of demand and the growth of demand for silver as it relates to auto electrical, nuclear usages, and solar usages. And solar and auto electrical is huge. It is enormous. And if you could look at the chart that I'm staring at right now as I talk to you, the listening public, you'd be blown away, because by 2030, which is just a stone's throw away from where we are right now, there is going to literally be another 120 million ounces per year of demand coming online for auto batteries and auto electric vehicles, for nuclear usages, and for solar technologies coming online around the world. And it is a very critical metal for tech. So we automatically, John, what comes to mind is silver's value. I mean, is it undervalued, overvalued? What is it? And it's sitting here as we speak below $30 an ounce. I mean, it's basically nothing. It's a throwaway. What doesn't in your life cost $15, $20, $30 every day? But it is a critical metal, and they talk about it and the demand for it. And I'm excited because this means that we're going to see such a renaissance, John, in terms of demand, that it's hard to turn a blind eye and not be excited and get involved. And the advancements in technology have been relatively quick. So it's just the last 15, 20 years. And when we talk about things like solar technology, among all metals, silver has the highest electrical conductivity, and it makes it an excellent choice for solar power generation. In fact, as the Visual Capitalist shows, a typical solar panel can contain as much as 20 grams of silver. Wow. And as a global solar capacity grows, so will the demand for silver. So if you think about how many solar panels are being made every day, every week, every month, it's huge. It's so big. And Canada is one of the weakest locations for it. Unfortunately, we just don't use, especially since the Doug Ford era came in Ontario with no subsidies, we are not growing our solar panel usage very much or as fast as the rest of the world. So silver in those things is going to be tremendous, part of a green future. And John, the second thing you pointed out was batteries, electric vehicles. Just like other electronic appliances, electric vehicles, or EVs as we call them, make use of silver for its conductivity and corrosion resistance. And so a lot of silver is used there. Virtually every single electrical connection in a vehicle has silver. And over, I think it's 55 million ounces of silver are used annually by motor vehicles right now, this second. So it's huge. And the projection globally for electric vehicle sales between now and 2040, there's going to be, again, it's huge. It's massive. Right now, it's somewhere around, a small amount of vehicles projected per year overall in comparison to the total auto industry. But if you look out at to 2035, 2040, again, a stone's throw away, they're projecting that we're going to need we're going to have somewhere around 300 to 400 million electric vehicles out on the road. This is crazy. I mean, this is not made up. This is real stuff. So again, silver is going to be in all of those. Operating electric windows, whether it's powered seats, whether it's silver ceramic lines, which are used for defogging for car windows, whether it's automatic parking systems, distance sensing systems, you name it. Every single aspect of the car, and the batteries for these cars filled with silver. So ultimately, this is a huge thing for us going forward. I don't know, John, how I could pick apart this any further than to say, as we keep going on in this show, you've got to be on the inside. Owning silver just for the sake of owning it is not enough. You have to be part of this story. You have to make it part of your wealth, part of your portfolio. And you can get started by simply going over to Delta Harbour's website and doing a little more research. We will help you every step of the way. When we come back from break, John, we'll talk about how to actually get physical silver and gold into your portfolio right now.
You bet we're going to do that. And then you often talk about the investors who are taking advantage of this, and you may be surprised some of the big ones that are all over silver and have been for some time. So stick around for that. We'll leave you with a phone number as we get to a break, and lots more of the show to come. 1-888-335-8645 and deltaharbor.com, and sign up for that newsletter. By the way, it's all compacted. It's done. You don't have to do any searching. Darren puts it together. And it's super simple for you to take that content and have it for yourself. Again, deltaharbor.com. We'll continue. This is Hard Money on Sauga 960. Welcome back to Hard Money here. And Darren Long is always in attendance from Delta Harbour, and they are ready now to service you and explore and expand this part of your portfolio, which you may not have active right now. It may be a little dormant. Well, it's time to change that. Get some physical metals into your investment portfolio. Doesn't have to be all of it, but a good portion of it anyway. And explore, make a phone call, get educated. 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. Darren, I want to talk a little more about the fundamentals of these precious metals and why they are exactly that, so fundamental and needed for people to know. And I know you shout it out every week and educate people why they should be getting in on this right now. No better time for the president, right?
Well, this is an overview show, John. This is a kind of 101 about gold and silver and all of the various aspects. And we pick on a few things, but truth be told, there are basically four fundamentals, which I coined back in 2004 when I started looking at this market, and reasons why I wanted to participate and reasons why I have participated. Four basic underlying fundamentals. One was that gold and silver react very positively to currency depreciation. So when the value of the US dollar decreases, historically gold has risen in value and it's dragged silver along with it. Silver is kind of like the younger brother of, or the sister of gold, if you want to call it that. Doesn't matter to me, but it ultimately does and has performed very well during those periods of decreased value in the US dollar. And by US dollar, I mean what it does against other currencies. So take into consideration, we are guinea pigs in a science experiment. We've never printed this much money in the last 10, 12 years or so, have been the most rapid gain and the amount of money circulation the world has ever seen in history, and it's happening on a global basis. And of course, that's why, again, silver and gold have on many occasions in the last 15 years been very, very climactic, been very, very opportunistic, and have given people a tremendous boost in their wealth and in their portfolio for value. And because of that money printing, John, obviously we talk about purchasing power, there is a loss of it. If we put more money into circulation, it becomes less valuable. How do we hold value? We have to find a way. We have to use an alternative currency. We've used gold, and that's what it's been. And we talked about that being a monetary metal. Silver, an industrial metal primarily. It does have monetary usages. Likewise, gold has industrial usages. But for the most part, gold is a monetary metal. Silver is an industrial metal. Both have awesome demand. Gold's demand coming not only from the public, but also from central banks. Silver's demand coming from industry and from the everyday user. But as those fundamentals develop, and as we get that idea of what it means to lose purchasing power in our heads, we talk about things like inflation. All that money hits the ground running, John, you get inflation. Nowhere is that more prevalent than right now in Canada and the US, where inflation, acknowledged inflation, is 4.1%. Again, we'll get the next report soon. It could be much higher than that. But street level inflation is closer to 6 to 8%. In the US, closer to 10%. If you look at food, if you look at the cost of living, gas that you're putting in your tank, the cost of a vehicle, the cost of your house right now. I mean, come on, this is the most craziest period of real estate idiocy that I've ever seen in my entire life. The average person can't even afford a home. That is inflationary. We have to look when we have a little pocket of additional disposable income in our wealth portfolios, or if we're looking to kill the things that aren't working, put them into gold and silver. I mean, listen, I'm not your planner and advisor. Don't pretend to be, nor is my firm. But ultimately, when you look at gold and silver, you can't argue with their track record, John. They're up over 300% respectfully, each metal. They're averaging tremendous gains every year. There's only been a few examples of years in which gold has lost. In fact, I think 2 years since I've been in this market have been losing years for gold. Otherwise, it's always been positive. And ultimately, these are the reasons why we love gold and silver. We talked about geopolitics. After inflation, we look at other things that countries do, not just individual investors, but whole countries, central banks around the world. Why do they own gold, but tell us that it's a relic, or don't give us any information on it? How many times you've gone to the bank and there's no information on gold or silver?
No.
Well, that's because they're completely entrenched in paper products. And that's sad, because this day and age is about much, much more than that. Wealthy individuals know this. They own land, they own other commodities, they own collectibles, and yes, they own gold and silver. So why is an everyday investor who puts 10, 15, 20, 30, 100,000 into the market every year, wouldn't I want to own the assets that the wealthy own, that the people who have 90% of the wealth in the world actually have in their portfolio? And this is why we talk about geopolitics. We talk about whole countries owning gold and silver. These are among the very reasons that we are duplicating this message time and time again every week. And then, of course, lastly, John, we talked about in the last segment, demand. We isolated silver a little bit. This is a green future we're heading into. No matter which way you slice it, this last election we looked at in Canada in particular was a great example. Everyone wanted to focus on green, even though some people don't believe that that's the way of the future. There is a huge amount of population that are interested in that topic. We know as part of that solar technology, other forms of energy technology, other types of EV vehicles or electric vehicles are going to come to the market, and demand for silver that's used in those things, huge. Silver is going to go much, much higher. So ultimately, you want to be part of that market. You want to get into that market. You start with firms like Delta Harbour, and you own physical gold and silver, bars, coins, and that's exactly what you do. You go to our website and you get involved that way.
Yeah, you did mention the industrial boom coming 2040 with EV vehicles. Not to make you feel old, buddy, but we're closer to 2040 than we are 2000. So that's a little scary. But last minute or two of the show, just tell people again how they could take advantage through Delta Harbour to begin getting this portfolio up and running, right?
Well, get your metals and you can have them delivered home. That's the easiest way. If you want to buy a few $1,000s of the metals to start, get your feet wet, go for it. If you're a larger buyer, you want to put 30, 40, 50, 100, maybe a couple of 100,000 into the market. That's fine too, but I would recommend storage. We have a storage program. It's simple, safe, it's insured, it's in your name. It's allocated from our assets. These are not pooled accounts, if you will, with storage. We don't share it with other people's product. Or the third option, bulk bullion. We'll talk about that in future shows, but the option to finance your purchase, right? To get a lot more bang for your buck, or to put out a lot less and take a lot less risk up front. Instead of spending 30,000 on 1,000 ounces of silver right now, you can lay out 6,000 or 7,000, get the same 1,000 ounces and control it the easiest way. Ultimately, those are other things that we can talk about on future shows, John, but it all starts with that phone number and the website, and realizing you're sitting in a day and an age and a time in which a lot of information is misinformation. Do yourself a favor, get educated, go beyond the headlines, work with firms like Delta Harbour. Gold and silver, in our belief, should be in every single portfolio on the face of the earth and part of every wealth strategy today.
All right, reaching out as we close it off, 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. Search Hard Money on Spotify if you want to catch shows, and YouTube, of course, youtube.com/Delta Harbor to get better educated and dip a toe and start investing in these hard assets. We'll catch you again next time on Hard Money on Sauga 960.